Every revelation of Scripture builds upon a foundation, and the last book of the Bible is no exception. The book of Revelation is often approached as a collection of symbols, prophecies, and mysteries about the end of the age. Yet its deepest truths cannot be fully grasped without first and fully understanding the ancient enemies it exposes. At the heart of this revelation stand the Shadim, the unclean spirits of old. The term Shadim found in the Hebrew scriptures, Deuteronomy 32 verse 17 and Psalm 106 verse 37, refers to the destructive entities to whom the nations sacrificed. These beings are not mere idols of wood and stone, but are spiritual powers rooted in rebellion against the Lord of hosts. According to ancient tradition, they are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, the hybrid offspring of the Watchers, and the daughters of men, um, described in Genesis 6. When the flood swept away their bodies, their spirits remained bound to the earth, restless and hostile and seeking embodiment and dominion. Throughout Israel's history, the Shadim reappeared in various forms as false gods, as tormentors, as deceivers of the nations. In the ministry of Jesus Christ, they were unmasked as unclean spirits, cast out by his authority. Yet the scripture makes it clear that their story does not end in the gospel. Revelation portrays their final rebellion and their ultimate destruction. The dragon, the beast, and the false prophet, and unclean spirits like frogs, all are expressions of this ancient force of opposition against God's kingdom. Therefore, understanding who the Shadim are is not optional for foundational, but foundational. It is the preamble to decoding Revelation. Without this knowledge, the visions John received appear fragmented. With it, they align into the closing act of a cosmic drama that began before the floods and ends with the triumph of the Lamb. This study begins then with the Shadim, their origin, their nature, and their operations, and follows their trail through history until their final unveiling in the Apocalypse of John. Only by walking this path can we truly understand what the Spirit says to the churches and discern the times in which we live in. So, in this presentation, I will be dealing with the formation of the kingdoms of the world. It is a foundational study that will enable us to decode the book of Revelation. Without understanding the previous videos and this one, the book of Revelation might not be meaningful so much to you. I'll just go straight to the point to look at our intro here, where I'll be looking at the watchers from the time of the watchers to Baal, and that will form part of the post-flood world exposition, where I'll be exploring the subdivisions, allotment, or the distributions, and the rise of false gods. So in Psalm 82, we are introduced to a hall of judgment, a judgment session with the gods or with the mighty ones called the watchers, also called the sons of God of Ben Elohim, and they did something wrong. They changed themselves from the celestial form, the nature of spirit beings, angels, as we may put it, and transformed themselves into human. They became human, flesh and blood, and with that nature, they were able to reproduce with humans. And God was not happy with that. He judged them, he condemned them, and they were eventually punished, bound alive in Tartarus, awaiting the final judgment. They are actually chained in darkness. Then we actually shift the focus as we travel through time to the era of the distribution of the world after the great flood, where we are going to look at the Holy Land and as God's possession. So we're going to use I'll be relying mostly on the Septuagint version of the Bible because it's the oldest form, translated around 250 BCE from the Hebrew Bible in Alexandria, Egypt. And it made a statement about how the nations were divided during the days of Peleg and during Babel, because Peleg and Babel occurred concurrently. And the division was based on the number of angels of God, according to the Septuagint version. However, the Masoretic text states that the divisions of the nations was based on the number of the sons of Israel, and Israel was not in existence by now. Hence, if you read modern translations of the Bible, like the King James, the NIV, and all the versions that we use today, the English version, which are a translation based on the Masoretic text, they all state that the nations were divided according to the number of sons of Israel. It is actually Israel-centric, that translation. But then the Septuagint version gives us a real picture because the translation is synonymous with the one found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the scrolls found in the Qumran caves. It also states that the divisions were according to the number of sons of God, Ben Elohim. That means the Septuagint version and the information from the Dead Sea Scroll, they perfectly agree. The divisions of the nations were not based on the number of the sons of Israel. It was based on the number of the angels of God, or the sons of God, because we know the sons of God are the angels of God. That is according to the Septuagint version. So the sons of God, the Ben Elohim, they are the watchers that we know. And if you're wondering which version I'm going to adapt, we have to look at the oldest textual witness, the one written around the 3rd and the 2nd century BC, and that is LXX, because the Dead Sea Scroll was written around 10th century. It was around 250 BC. It perfectly agrees with the LXX than the Septuagint Bible. So during the time of Babel, that's the divisions of the nations, Israel did not exist. It did not yet exist. It wasn't existent by now. But it could be prophetic, pointing to something something into the future. But we need to take the text as it is. Okay, this version from the Septuagint and the Dead Sea Scrolls suggests the reading Sons of Israel. It was later an alteration by later translators. So let's go straight to the divisions of the nations and explore what the statement or what the account or the Bible has to offer. So here it states that after Babel, God divided humanity into different nations. And then this, according to the Dead Sea Scroll and the Septuagint version, the LXX, this division was according to the number of the sons of God, which in Genesis says we know are the Bene Elohim, the watchers, the angels. So it aligns perfectly without contradiction. Yes, we know Israel is God's son, is the firstborn of God, but it doesn't contradict what the two witnesses are saying. What this means is that each watcher or angelic being was allocated a sphere of rule over a nation. As mankind were divided, God set an angel over them to rule over them. And it brings to memory what Daniel 10 has to say about the prince of Persia and the prince of Greece. And they seem to have looked like some angelic ruler. Are they really angelic ruler? Are the prince of Persia and the prince of Greece really angels? We're gonna explore this quickly. We're gonna discover they aren't God's angels, to be precise. So in this particular presentation, in this part, I'm going to be looking at Israel as the Lord's portion, Yod His portion, and this is according to Moses. He states that the Lord's portion is His people. The Lord's portion is His people. Jacob, the allotment of his inheritance. Now, you got to look at this statement in two ways. There are two ways by which we can explore this statement. We have the other nations, then we have Israel. So God divided the world, several nations. If you look into my previous study, you will discover that the nations after Babel were divided into 70. There were 70 nations there. Each nation was assigned a watcher or an angelic being, except one, Israel, that was kept directly under God. A portion of land that was directly under God's rule, and that land will become Israel's. So, because Israel didn't exist during the time of Babel and Peleg, well, we have to look at it in two ways. It is not just saying Israel belongs to God, because there was no Israel during the time of Babel. So the statement saying the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob the allotment of his inheritance, it looks as if Israel belongs to God. No, actually, it is the opposite. It is saying God himself chose Jacob as his inheritance. But then, yes, that is very correct. God chose Israel as his inheritance. Yes, he said it if you check the book of Deuteronomy. But in reverse, in turn, it is saying it is not like God's inheritance is Jacob, rather God's allocation, God's portion of the earth after the division of the land, the part of the earth that was God's, that belonged to him, became Jacob's inheritance. It became Jacob's portion. Jacob inherited it. That is, the land belongs to God. There's a portion of land across the earth's landmass that belongs to earth, and the one whom God will choose will become a custodian of that particular land. So Jacob inherited God's own land share. In other words, the territory of the earth marked by Yod-Heh himself as his dwelling place automatically became Jacob's inheritance because God chose Jacob. So if we check Deuteronomy 32, verse 8 to 9, according to the Dead Sea Scroll and the Septuagint version, said God divided the nations according to the number of the sons of God or the angels of God. Either ways, okay? So we have the nations placed under divine overseers, angels, watchers, yes, sons of God. Then we have a portion of land that was not allocated to any of those angels except one. But that portion belongs to God, and God chose Israel. Israel had no place. Israel didn't have any inheritance among the nations. Hence, Israel's inheritance became what belonged to God. God gave him his land. That land belonged to Israel because God gave it to him. The rest of the world belonged to, yes, the mankind, whether it's a desert or a forest. You can take it, but that portion of land belongs to God. His portion of the earth, that's the land, specifically the land from the border of the Nile River to the Euphrates. That region is God's own territory. When he was dividing the world during Peleg, the earth is 70% water. The about 30% of the surface of the land, whether mountains or snow or desert, that portion, he gave it to humankind, that all mankind can have it. But the portion of land between the Nile River and the Euphrates River, that one, he said, it belongs to him. And when he chose Jacob and entered into a covenant with him, Jacob automatically was given that land to dwell on. So there is no conflict there. It is just historical. It's just something that is embedded in history. All right, so we look at the next segment after the division that deals with the great departure or the transfer of dominion. Remember, the nations were originally under the B'nai Elohim. All the nations after Peleg were all assigned to a supernatural being who ruled over them, taught them, showed them how to do things, how to live on earth as God's creation. And from as time went on, from time to time, the Shadim, the demons, the Nephilim souls began to influence them. And the nations slowly and gradually turned to idols. And once the nations started turning to idols, the Lord just withdrew. The Lord's presence just withdrew. And it is just like that because these watchers were assigned to them to represent God's reign on them. It's like a theocracy, but then there's liberality. You are free to farm, you are free to do all things, but then the purpose of the watchers were to guide humanity into civilization, how to harvest, how to crop, how to farm, how to do things, like how to live on earth. Not necessarily, but then they are doing so with understanding that we are worshiping God. It's not a religious thing, it's about civilization. The hybrid Nephilim spirits talk about Baal, Chemosh, Molech, Milcom. They fill the vacuum. Once the nation started worshiping deities and started worshiping other entities, once they went into idol worship through deception from this shedding, the angelic beings sent to watch over them, they depart. It's just like that. There is no conflict. God doesn't fight to win their trust. If the person chooses to worship another thing, he quickly leaves. And that is how God is. If you check through the book of Exodus and Ezekiel, when idols are raised, Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh departs. And then when he departs, chaos follows. That is it. For as long as God is there, there will be order. If you choose to worship another thing, God won't battle with you. He will first convince you not to do that. He will keep on convincing you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 7th time, 8th time, 9th time, 10th time, he departs. Sometimes he can convince you several times. And if you choose to continue with your actions, he doesn't bother you anymore. He moves away. And when he moves away, chaos takes over. So it parallels with the events that occurred in the temple in Ezekiel chapter 8 to chapter 11, where the Israelites placed the image of jealousy in the temple. That's the image of Baal and his wife, the Asherah. When they placed those images there, the supernatural voices, if you remember, according to Josephus' account, during AD 70, before the destruction, there were voices in the temple, according to Antiquities of the Jews. The Elohims, they said, "Let us go hence." This was before the destruction of the temple in AD 70 by the Romans. They were hearing voices, there were apparitions, and then there was a voice where the Merkaba and the Elohims, the watchers, those that watched over the land occupied by inhabited by Israel, they said, "Let us go hence." And yeah, the glory departed. God left the temple, and the moment God left, whether in the time of Babylon, in the time of the Romans, when the moment the glory left, the Merkaba left, the Elohims left. When the Elohims left, chaos took over. In the absence of light, there will be darkness. Where there is darkness, there is chaos. So anytime the glory of God left, anytime the Elohims left, destruction followed. And so we see the same pattern among the nations After the divisions, God set over them watchers to bring order in civilization. But eventually, it is within the human nature to rebel after Adam and Eve ate the fruit that gave them the ability to sin. So our DNA became corrupted. It had encoded in it the tendency to sin. So mankind rejected the reign of the watchers, the sons of God, the angels of God, and went on to things they can see, touch, feel, and experience, other than things that look so ethereal. And in the same pattern, in the same vein, for the nations, once they rejected the authority of Yod He Vahe, the divine guardianship left. And that is it. Left. So Israel is also an exception. It is a bit different from the nations. Leviticus 25 verse 23, God tells Israel, the land is mine. The land is mine. I mean, that land belongs to God. Somebody say, where is God? Does God exist? If he is God, where is he? They want to see him. But then he said, the land is his. So the land is mine. Leviticus 25:23. The land of Israel cannot be abandoned, always preserved. Always, it has a preserved remnant. Unlike the other nations where God automatically left them entirely, whenever Israel sinned, God does not abandon the land. He keeps them away, but he keeps the land because the land is his. He said it many times, that the land is mine. He even said the whole earth is mine. So what he does is that we have the archangel Michael, who in Daniel is described as the ruler of Israel. So he's called the Prince of Israel. His being, he's the one who battles the other deities that tries to encroach on God's territory. From time to time, after the entities have governed, taken over the rest of the world, there was just one piece of land that was not inhabited by them. That is the land God gave to Israel, God's own land. And from time to time, you see these entities encroaching it. So the encroachment went on up until God called Abraham. Now we go on to the first post-flood war. Immediately after the flood, the first regional war broke out. Before the flood, there had been global war, mega war, using mega and dangerous weapons, not even what we have today. Real weapons. They're going to reappear again. These were dangerous weapons. But then in a post-flood era, the first 350 years of Noah's life experienced a regional war. Humans versus Nephilim developed the King, Genesis 14. So over there we have the War of the Kings. King Chedorlaomer of Elam, Elam is akin to Persia, led a coalition of 4 kings, Arampel, Arioch, Tidal, and they fought against 5 kings of the valley of Sidon, the region of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela. If you look at the names of this nation, one thing comes to mind: destruction by fire. It was a demonic or a Shadim stronghold. It was a place inhabited strongly by this Shadim, corrupting mankind. And they fought in the Valley of the Kings, a territory of ancient Nephilim rulers in those days. And it goes on to say, and that was before the 5 kings, before the war occurred. The coalition of King Chedorlaomer of Elam and the 4 kings, they fought or they attacked the Rephaims in Ashtoreth, Canaan. If you know the name Ashtoreth, Ashtoreth comes from, it gives us the word, it's a name. Actually, Ashtoreth comes from, it's like Ashira. It goes with the word Ashira. It's one of the names of the Nephilim. It's a female deity. The word Ashter is synonymous with the stars. And Canaan actually it isn't that much, but then it sounds like the word Canaan, or yeah, Canaan, meaning the first. But then there were many. So we have they fought in Ashtoreth, Canaan. It is a region occupied by a tribe of giants, and one of them was Og of Bashan. So you see here, the name Ashtoreth is synonymous with today. We have cities like Athens. Athens was one of the Olympian gods. It's a female deity, and have a whole city named after him. So we also here we have another city called Ashtoreth, Ashtaroth, which comes from the word Ashtaroth or Ashira, which is one of the female Nephilim deity born to one of the pre-flood Bene Elohim. Then they've also fought against the Zuzim in Ham. The name Zuzim is linked to Zamzumim, and these were giants. Then they also fought with the Emim. That is before the war among the humans. There was a war between humans and the Nephilims. It was the first regional war between humans and non-humans. So they have the Emim in Shaveh Kiriathim, and these were giants also. And then we have the Horites, and they were in Seir. They were displaced by the line of Esau. So if you look thoroughly, you can see from the word go, immediately after the great flood, the giants were already there. The Nephilims had reappeared, and humans were instinctively beginning to peg them, to fight them one by one. Then we have the Valley of Sidon, or the Valley of the Kings, where we have a whole valley called the Valley of the Kings. I wonder how many kings were on earth in those days. But then this phrase, Valley of the Kings, it actually brings to memory the pre-flood Nephilim divine kings. Something we're going to explore at a later stage in this study. These entities may have ruled on earth, had dominion, and but then during the great flood war perished, and that region is akin to Armageddon, the place where light and darkness will clash together. So in those days, Abraham's relative Lot was captured, and Abraham raised 318 trained men to fight back, and they fought against Chedorlaomer, and they rescued Lot. That means Chedorlaomer defeated the Nephilims, the names of the various tribes that we saw, because had it not been that, he wouldn't have still been around. He defeated the Zamzumim, the Emims, the Horites, the Rephaims, and then later on, he took captive of all those regions inhabited by them. By so doing, he took Lot as a booty, and then Abraham went to rescue. In the process, they encountered Melchizedek, and then they held an encounter. They ate bread, and blessings were exchanged. Now, our main question is, where did these Nephilims came from? Where did they come from? We have to look at the origin of the Nephilim, from the hybrids to the new gods, new arrival. That is what we want to know. How did they return? Because we know in the great flood, they should have all been dead, but then they still reappeared again. So we know, according to Genesis 6, yes, the watchers came down, interbred with humans, and they gave birth to the Nephilim, the giants, the warriors of old, the great men, the famous people, the strong men. God judges them. He binds the watchers in Tartarus. Nephilims are destroyed by the flood. And then there's a key statement. It looks like a loophole where he said, all nostril breathing flesh perish. That is, all creatures that breathe through their nostril perish. That means trees won't perish because they don't breathe through their nostril. So many animals wouldn't have perished, and I've a vivid study on it. I've also posted it on YouTube on the days of Noah, a 3-part session where you're gonna learn about who went into the ark, who didn't, who died, and who survived. So we have a survival puzzle here. That is after the flood. We see the giants reappearing again. We see the Rephaim, the Anakim, the Emim, the Zumzumim. We wonder, where did they come from? So how did they even return? There are a lot of possible theories and possible survival pathways, because remember, the flood lasted for a whole year. We have the inflow and the outflow. All took place in 1 year with 3 sources of water to flood the world. We have subterranean flood waters, and then we have the celestial flood waters, and then we have rain itself. So there were three sources, and it lasted for a whole year, where every high mountain was actually submerged. So how would they have survived? So there are three possible, actually about four possible pathways. Genetic transmission, which is very popular through the wives of the sons of Noah, or there could have been some technological escape. If you look at some historical account from the Hindu Vedas, talking about beings with flying crafts, and we also have UFOs nowadays. And so I've also done a study on them. These are all part of the depictions. So maybe they have technological escape, or they may have some dimensional retreat, either portals or gateway. They could have appeared and reappeared, because these entities were seen as gods. So any of these three possibilities could occur, or they were hidden in caves like we have it today. We still have some of these entities hidden in underground subterranean caves. Um, if the surface of the earth was flooded and those regions were not flooded for a whole year, maybe through some means they could have survived. But then we need to understand that in the Garden of Eden, when mankind ate the fruit, it gave them wisdom and not just strength, because it wasn't a meal, a full meal that would have given you strength. It was just a fruit that would just open your mind into knowing things that you shouldn't know. Hence, the Nephilim, through the corruption that occurred across the ages and the interventions of their fathers, the Watchers, they indeed inherited and expanded this forbidden knowledge. They knew stuff that we're not supposed to know now. So, through wisdom, they were able to harness elemental powers. Ask yourself, how are these demons so? Where do they get their power from? How are they? Yeah, how are they empowered? How do they get their power from? Are they powerful because they are spirits? No. How do they get their power? Because they are half human, half angels, and their line of interpreting brings in different proportions of human and non-human components. So how are they able to harness their power? If you listen carefully, rather than these demons, some will claim they are the god of thunder, god of lightning, god of rain, god of windstorm, all kinds of stuff. How are they able to do that? It is because they're able to harness elemental powers of the sun. They know how to harness the power of the sun. That is part of the knowledge the Nephilim brought. How to harness the power. Today we're able to use solar energy to harness. Plants are able to do that, to change the sun's energy into food. Now we can turn the sun's energy into electricity, but then these deities, these entities, they had knowledge we may call forbidden, advanced knowledge that gives them the ability to control storm, the sea, lightning, be able to call forth lightning at will. That is remarkable. Adam had all those power, but sin caused him to lose the ability. So the Nephilim saw transformation into the likeness of their fathers. Now, this is it. So whatever their fathers were, now that their fathers are not there, they try to fill in the vacuum. So through blood sacrifice, which they need all the time, and sorcery, invocation of elemental forces, fusion of human and spiritual essence, yes, these entities, they're able to reborn themselves. They were supposed to be hybrid, but now they're able to, through rituals, transform themselves into gods. And in Deuteronomy 32, verse 17, God calls them new gods, new arrival. These are not ancient, these are brand new, they are not old. And God warned them. He said, they sacrificed demons, new gods that have recently appeared. So they were not there before creation or during creation. They have recently. How recent is the recently? That is time measured relatively. He said, not ancient celestial beings. These are not ancient celestial beings. The Nephilims we are talking about spread throughout the Bible. These are post-flood Nephilim. These were reborn. These are the new arrivals. These arrived because they have escaped. If you have arrived, where did you arrive from? From where did you come from? They came from somewhere. That puts us into another area of thinking. So they have returned. They were once on earth, they left, now they have come back and have transformed themselves through rituals taught them by their fathers. Mind you, the watchers were able to change themselves from celestial form into human. How did they do that? Now, if you can change yourself from spirit to physical and to live permanently physical, you can also do the reverse. How do you turn a physical being into a spiritual being with power? That will involve rituals, practices, knowledge that is beyond us, things we may not know. So today, we have so-called storm gods like Zeus, Baal, etc., producing thunder and lightning at will. They did not create it, they are able to harness it. We also have sun gods, Shemesh, Apollo, Ra. What do? They're able to influence, harness the power of the sun. We are doing it now. Archimedes was able to harness the power of the sun to produce what is called the death ray. And so these deities are also trying to do the same. All these are not real. They are all just deceiving entities. So here we go on to how the new deities try to fight over what belongs to God. And you realize that when the flood ended, the first Nephilim age, but then some have escaped because the flood ended the first Nephilim age, the era of the flood. But it seems that some may have escaped and they return changed. It is a fact historically that during every warfare, many die in the war, but there will be one or two who will escape to tell the tale. So it is possible that during the flood, yes, almost about 99.99% of the entire Nephilim race may have died, and one or two of them may have survived to go and tell the tale. And there are some other reasons that I always try to point out. So these new gods, or the souls of the Nephilim, they now became Baal, Chemosh, Molech, Ra, etc. And Israel's story is framed, and they're supposed to war. Israel was chosen, inherited a portion of land to war against this entity. The reason Israel exists is to fight against this demon entity, to drive away this Shedim, so that the nations can regain their inheritance and their place and purpose in the will of God. So we still want to know, where did this Nephilim come from? Well, there is no evidence in the Bible that traces any of these Nephilim tribes directly to the sons of Noah. There's no evidence. There's nowhere from Genesis to Revelation that tells us how the Nephilims reappeared on earth. We don't have any account, any biblical, direct biblical narrative. There are other sources that tries to come up with other theories. So, but then we have other evidence. We have evidence to prove that they are here. They were on earth. Yes, we have the Rephaims mentioned in Deuteronomy and Joshua. They describe who they are. And we have names of kings like Og of Bashan, and we have Sihon. And but then there's no direct link as to their origin. There's no genealogy, a biological link that these entities came out of so and so. It is not written. Same applies to the Enim and the Zuzumim. If you go through it, they are described as giants, yes, according to the Bible, but there is no clear biological or genealogical link. There's no genetic connection between these people, these entities, and humans. These are non-humans. They do not share human genes. They don't have any link. There are a lot of theories trying to say they came from the sons of Cain, but there is no evidence to support it. We have the Anakims or the Anakites. Same thing. They all came from the Nephilim. It is written, the greatest men among the Anakim, they came from their father, Abba. Abba is the father of the Anakim. If Abba is a father of the Anakim, where did Abba come from? Okay, we are not told. All these giants, the Anakims, came from one person, Abba. And if Abba is a Nephilim, you will have to interpret with a human. So We are not told. A whole land was called Kiryat Arba. So indirectly, they are connected to Ham, but it doesn't give us a full detail. How do they connect to Ham? Definitely, if Abba is a Nephilim, Abba will have to interbreed with a female from the line of Ham in order to give birth to them. So that is what we'll be looking at. Remember, these Nephilims were mostly male, and they need a female vessel to repopulate their kind. Og and Sihon, yeah, we are told who they are. They were the last of the Rephaim. That is Og. Sihon was an Amorite king. We are told the Amorites were descended of Canaan. But we are not told whether Sihon is an Amorite, but he was a ruler of the Amorite. Yes, a mighty strong person. If he's able to help a group of people, he is made a king over the people. So over here, the Amorite descended from Canaan, and we are not told where Sihon actually came from. Well, but that will claim, that will put Sihon as a Hamitic being. But yes, he was also an Amorite. We know who the Amorites were. The Amorites too were giants. So Og is a Rephaite giant, also tied to Canaanite territory. So they were in that region, but it doesn't conclusively say they came genealogically from them. What about the Amalekites? Yes, we have the genealogy of Esau, the son of Eliphaz, called Amalek. And he had a concubine. He descended from Amalek and a concubine. We're not told who that concubine is. So this makes them an Edomite. By one sense, in one sense, we have them as the Edomite. However, Amalekite tribes may have absorbed giant clans. Yes, because we look at two tribes of the Amalekites. We have one from the line of Esau and one from a mysterious line where we are not told where they came from. But then they live in the Negev or the Canaanite borderlines anyway. So it still leaves us with some gray areas that we need to explore. So it is possible that these are hybrids. It is possible because already Abba had populated his kind, and then Amor may have also populated his kind. So it was possible that humans interbred with non-humans to produce these beings. So the Amalekite is here directly connected to Shem, but there are a lot of areas not known. Then we have Abba. Hebron was formerly called Kiryat Arba, after Abba, the greatest man among the Anakim. He was the father of the Anakim, the patriarch of the Anakim. There is no evidence to show where he explicitly came from. None of the sons of Noah begat him. He was not born. He did not biologically originate from any line of human. So he is linked to Nephilim descent within Canaanite lines, because Canaan, well, it was actually a territory. We have a lot of people there. It was like a cosmopolitan area. We have all kinds of people living there, and not every person that you find living in a place can be said to be fully human. So what do we know now? Are there direct genealogies with all these tribes mentioned? The answer is no. There is no direct genealogy linking all these tribes to the human race. Yes, but then are there indirect biological links? Yes, there are a lot of it. So indirectly, these entities are linked to humans. But ultimately, how will you reproduce without a female? Unless there is a female Nephilim and a male Nephilim, then they can reproduce. But then, if all these entities are male, because all of them are male, like Amor is a male, Abba is a male, Raphael is a male, all of them, all they're all male. So if they want to reproduce, they're gonna need a human vessel. They followed after their fathers. So yes, the Bible does not trace Zanzumin, Emim, Raphaim, Anakim, Og, Sihon, Abba directly to the genealogical tables back to Noah. They are not biologically connected to us. However, we see them dwelling among them. And once we dwell with them, they're going to interbreed. So for as long as they have this human phenotype, it's easy for them to interbreed with any female. So there is no contradiction here. Let's look at the logic. All Nephilim perish in the flood. True or false? Yes, true, according to the Bible. If you go look at statement 2, giants reappeared after the flood. Is that true also? Yes. Giants reappeared after the flood. And we all know the souls of the Shedim still survived. They were not in Hades, they were not in Tartarus, and these became disembodied, hence they need a body. So this is just a contemplation, but we will still get to the truth. For now, it looks theoretical. So it could be we are still trying to find out how did they reappear. Maybe through some means, sexual corruption, some means, sorcery they could have interbred with, again with humans. For as long as they exist, interbreeding doesn't become a problem. So the Bible and tradition harmonize. Yes, they all died, yet their spirits survived. And some reconstituted flesh through human host. So it is still not fully answered here. It's not conclusive how the giants reappeared. But we know one that is mentioned that he is of the giant. That's Abba. Abba is the father of the Anakims. He came. He's a male. He came. How did he survive? We are not told. Maybe he hid himself somewhere in a subterranean cave, or through a portal, or something. Well, let's shift our focus to the new gods and the new arrival. Mentioned in Deuteronomy 32, verse 17, said they sacrificed to demons, not to God, to gods which they knew not, new ones freshly come, newly arrived, whom their fathers did not fear. So Moses is talking to Moses. Moses is talking to the Israelites. He said, your fathers did not fear the so-called gods that are around them. So who are the fathers here? According to the Song of Moses, which he addressed to them, he mentioned the fathers here refers to the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. So they knew about these so-called gods. In other words, these gods existed same time around their existence. So they knew them, but they never worshipped them. Okay, they worshipped Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh. This is in contrast to the ancient gods and the new god. The ancient god is Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh, that's the creator of heaven and earth, the eternal God. It says, your father who bought you, who made you and established you. You see, the eternal God. So God actually identified himself as a father to them. And then the new gods, they just came recently after the flood. These are not the gods of their fathers. These are those they that brought the worship of these idols. And so he said, whom your father did not know, whom your fathers did not fear. And that tells you Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they knew about those gods. It was around them. They had their idols and their statues and their fingerings. And they didn't even fear them. So if the statement goes by saying, whom your fathers did not fear, does it say, is it because they did not exist yet? Or they are fresh arrivals? Of course, they were just fresh arrivals. He said the fathers in Deuteronomy 32:17 refers to Israel's patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and by extension, Noah's righteous line. So they never feared or worshipped the new gods. And the reason is because most probably they didn't exist in their days, and they are post-flood Nephilim arrivals. Yes, these gods existed after the post-flood, because before the great flood, they weren't just there were no such things. They were rather real angelic beings, and the Nephilim physical alive, ruling the earth. When they died, their souls after the flood appeared to people as gods, and that is why God calls them the new God. They just came after the flood. So what happened to them? Now God raises Joshua, and he was through Moses to make war against the Nephilim. What is the purpose? Is to reclaim the lost portion. So let's see the lost portion. And we've already gone through it in Deuteronomy 38, verse 8 to 9. Israel possesses God's inheritance. He's given. He didn't possess. He has to possess, but he's given. But the land wasn't empty. It was filled with the giant clans, land from the Nile to the Euphrates. So the tribes of giants inhabited it. We have Anakim, dwelt in the hills country of Judah and Israel. They all came from Abba, the greatest of the Anakim. We have the Rephaim under the rule of Og, with a 13-foot size bird. And we have the Amorites. They are as big as a cedar tree. They were huge. These are Nephilims. Ammon, they came from Ammon. We have the Emim of the Zumzumim. They inhabited the region of the Moabites, territory, and Ammon. We have the Philistines, today called Palestinians. The original Palestinians or Philistines are no more in existence. What we have there are not the original Palestinians. So there was a region belonging to the Philistines. It was harbored by the Anakim survivors, and we had Goliath. The Philistine was one of the 5 major cities founded along the coast of the Mediterranean. We have Ekron, Gath, and then we have Philistine, and then Ashdod. Okay, so these cities, these were cities, not a nation. Unlike today, they see it as it wasn't a nation. The whole land area being claimed today, it wasn't called Palestine. It was called Canaanite. It was inherited by a lot of tribes. There were many of them. It was a huge clan, huge people inhabited the region between Nile and Euphrates. It wasn't called Palestine. It was never called. There is no history of it. But then, did Palestine exist? Yes, it was just a small city on the coast. There were 5 cities. It was part of the 5-city state. It was like a small city state. It wasn't a whole region like it politically being done today. That is never so. The whole land was called Canaan, and there were other tribes, and those people were not full. They were part of the Nephilim race, and God raised Israel to change them up. That is a portion of land belonging to God. So we have the Southern campaign in Joshua chapter 10, where the coalition of 5 kings led by Adoni-Zedek of Jerusalem, and Joshua defeated them at Gibeon, and God rained down hailstone from heaven, and the sun stands still. We have the cities of southern Canaan that fell. Several cities fell. We have Hebron, formerly called Hebron, but now called Kirjath Arba. It fell. Debir fell. Lachish fell. Eglon fell. Makeda fell. Then we have the northern campaign in Joshua 11, where we have also a coalition of kings led by King Jabin of Hatzor. Jabin ruled. He was the chief of the Canaanites, the region being fought over today politically. He was the chief king over there. It's called Jabin of Hatzor. And he was actually killed by Joshua. He came with 1 million forces to fight against the Israelites. That region is historically called Canaan. It was never called Palestine, as politically is being contorted. Those are false claims. But then Palestine existed as a small area there, but it wasn't founded by the modern Palestine. It was founded by the ancient Nephilim people. The conquest of the northern lands, where we have major Nephilim strongholds destroyed. So that is what we are looking at. Then we go on to the peg of the Anakim. So Joshua cut off the Anakim from the hill country and said none were left in Israel's land except the following: Gaza. See, so we have Gaza, we have Gath, we have Ashdod, we have Ekron, and then we have Philistine. So even the Philistine is different from Gaza, or what they call Palestine is different from Gaza. It was one of the 5 cities, and they were inhabited by the Anakims in ancient times, talking about some 4,000 years ago, 4,000 or 3,500 years ago. And they were all destroyed. Complete cleansing of giants, clans from the lost land. That land belongs to God, God's own land. The rest of the world, he said you can have it. That portion is his. So all those who survived, they retreated, and then they went into the territory of the Philistines, and they inhabited it. The Philistines will become a threat to Israel from generation to generation. And the Anakim survivors in Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod, they inhabited the land of Philistine. So we are looking at something on a larger scale. It wasn't just a political thing. Now it looks so political, but this is not just a political conflict. This conflict it has a cosmic dimension to it. This is beyond politics. This is religious war, spiritual conflict. But the land belongs to the Lord, belongs to Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh. The land is his. And after Babel and Peleg, he gave the rest of the world to humans. And he was supposed to do whatever he want to do with it, including its treasures and riches. But that portion of land between the Nile and the Euphrates, he said it is his. However, the Nephilim encroached it, and the Lord raised Moses and Joshua to fight over it. And it depicts the foreshadowing of the Messiah's ultimate conquest over demonic powers. So that now the current conflict is over God's land, and all the nations have left their inheritance and they want that piece of real estate. They just want that piece of land. They said they want it and they want it now. We have other lands there, like the Sahara Desert is huge, mostly uninhabited. We have the Gobi Desert, mostly uninhabited. We have Antarctica, is uninhabited. We have a lot of places that are not inhabited by humans. Yet, they don't want any of them. They just want this tiny piece. If you think this thing is political, you are joking. This is not political. This is something of cosmic dimension. This is a spiritual war. It's beyond reason. You can think about it. You see the conflict between Israel and Palestine has become a global thing. Meanwhile, we have the Sinai Peninsula, which is empty. Why won't they go and occupy? They won't. Why would they go to Saudi Arabia? They won't. There are a lot of empty places all over the world. The entire human population can fit into a single country. But guess what? They won't. They don't want that. You can even do sea reclamation. You can even reclaim the sea to create lands. But they won't. They don't want a settlement. This is not about settlement. This is not politics. There is something working behind the scenes. It started many, many years ago. The war on the Nephilim peg. This is not just human conquest. We are not dealing with humans here. We're looking at giant tribes. New gods, new arrival. The conquest was partial. Remnants in Philistine required for future wars. Remember all those 5 tribes: Ashdod, Ekron, Gaza, and we have Palestine, and then we have Gath. These were inhabited by Nephilim. When the 3 fell, it was now left with Philistine, and it was left with Gath. The survivors from Ekron, Ashdod, and Gaza, they fled and they went to Philistine, and their war continued. And Israel's history is always about a cosmic struggle for God's inheritance. The land belongs to them. They want it. They are not going to leave it. They have to have it. Whether they are Israelites or not, they believe in God. They believe that land belongs to them. It belongs to God. They just have to have it. The others who are claiming the land is theirs, they have no historical ties. They have no biological or genealogical ties, so they want it. But let's shift our attention to the deities of the Bible. We're looking at Baal of Peor and Shade, who's a demon. And this was along the journey of the Exodus. The Hebrew word for demon, that's Shadim. And it's a disembodied spirit of dead Nephilim. So, Baal of Peor is identified in scripture as a foreign god, but it's a demon. It's a Shadim. He said the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to demons and not to God. So if you look into scripture carefully, in Numbers 25 verse 1 to 3, Israel camped at Shittim. Moabite women seduced them with the help of Balaam, who cast spells on the males of Israel, yoked themselves into Baal Peor worship. The Lord got angry. 24,000 people perished in the plague, and then eventually Israel joined themselves to Baal of Peor and sacrifices offered to the dead. They worship not just idolatry. It was a communion with demons and with Shadim. God was so angry. One of the things that angered God the most were the golden calf worship, and then the worst of all, worst of all was the sin of Baal Peor. It is the worst sin in Israel, where they aligned themselves with Baal. Because we're going to see why God became very angry, but they didn't know who Baal was, but they later came to know. So we go on to look at the death of Moses on Mount Nebo, where it is written that the servant of the Lord died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. And God, he buried him in the valley in the land of Moab. You don't know who the he is, but it's not human. He buried him in the land of Moab. Guess where? Opposite Beth Peor. So Moses was buried just opposite where the house of Peor, the Beth Baal Peor, where Baal existed. So no one knows his grave to this day. So if you look at the details we are presented here, we are given the location. The location is near Beth Baal Peor. And what is that place? Is a place where Israel became yoked with the worship of Baal through seduction. And God himself buried him for a good reason. And we're not because he was special, but there's a good reason. And his tomb or burial place remained unknown and protected for a good reason, which we're going to explore. Anything in my other video, but we're going to explore it again here because it's important. So, what is the link between Beth Baal Peor and the Shadim? Because if you want to know, we have to look at the location, where it's located, and where the burial of Moses occurred. Remember, Beth Baal Peor, this entity is a demon from my previous video. You're going to explore, you're going to see it again. It's a disembodied Nephilim spirit who, through Balaam, here's the name of the guy who wanted to cast a curse on Israel. He's called Balaam. His name, Balaam. Balaam. A name synonymous that bears the name of that deity. He was a prophet of Baal anyway. He seduced Israel into immorality and sacrifice to the dead. God even caused Israelites to kill him. He was buried. He was killed. Moses was buried in this vicinity of Beth Baal Peor. A spiritual battle ensued, and Baal wanted to claim the body of Moses as a trophy for a good reason. Now, in Jude 1:19, we see Michael the archangel disputing with the devil and argued about the body of Moses. Really, they disputed and they argued and did not dare pronounce against him a real judgment. Michael could have condemned him, would have killed him just by pronouncing the judgment. But he simply said, "The Lord rebuke you. God have rebuked you." So they were arguing about the body of Moses. What was Michael doing with the body of Moses? Michael is a prince of Israel, according to Daniel. He had to intervene and protect the body of the man because Satan wanted to claim it. So we have to explore it further to look at Baal worship in Israel from Moses to Elijah, how the covenant people fell into idolatry. So after Moses and Joshua's era, Joshua warns, "Do not intermarry or tolerate idols." Moses conquers most of Canaan, but pockets of Baal shrines remain. The threat of corruption lingers near Beth Baal Peor, where Israel first fell. During the era of the judges, we see generations that exist after Joshua. We have Israel serving Baals and Ashtoreth, his wife. And then we see the pattern. Whenever there's idolatry, it leads to oppression, then the people will repent, and then the Lord will deliver them. Gideon tears down Baal's altar. He's even called by the name of Baal later on. And Samson fought the Philistines, who were also into worship of Baal and Dagon. And so if you explore explicitly, you can see Israel, after Moses began to serve Baal and his wife, Ashtoreth, and the pattern repeats itself. Israel turns to Baal, they're enslaved by the enemies, they cries out, Yahweh raises a judge, and the cycle restarts. Gideon turns down Baal's altar. Jephthah faces Ammonites who serve Chemosh and Baal. Samson fights Philistine, stepped in Baal and Dagon worship. Now, so since their settlement in the promised land has always been war conflict between them and the forces that surrounds them. Under Saul and David, Israel battles Philistine, Canaanites, and Amorites. Baal worship continued in surrounding nations. David centralizes worship in Jerusalem, but shrines and high places were not fully removed. And then we have Solomon, the division. Solomon's foreign wives introduced the worship of Ashtoreth, Molech, and Chemosh, according to First Kings. And we have Solomon's death. After the death of Solomon, the kingdom is divided into Judah, who remain faithful, but sometimes they compromise. And then we have the northern kingdom, Israel, that quickly descended into full Baal worship. So Israel, the northern kingdom, instituted Baal worship through King Ahab, who reigned around 874 and to 853 BC. And to make it worse, she even married Jezebel, a Sidonian princess who imposed Phoenician Baal Melkart worship into Israel. 1 Kings 1631. And Jezebel does the worst. He builds Baal's temple in Samaria and installs 450 Baal prophets plus 400 Asherah prophets, because Asherah was the wife of Baal. Baal worship now became a state worship. It became state sponsored by the queen and by the king, threatening to eclipse Yod-Heh entirely for no reason. Beelzebub, for strange reason, Jezebel, even the name Jezebel, the word Baal, because Baal, we don't know is spelled B-A-L. It is actually also spelled B-E-L if you read ancient records. So the name Jezebel was actually Jezebel. I mean, her name bear the name of that deity. And she threatened to wipe clean anything that is God. And it echoes the book of Revelation, how the son of perdition opposes anything that is God. We're going to explore it in the next study. And Baal worship involved child sacrifice, ritual prostitution, feast to Baal. It polluted the land. And whenever Baal worship became instituted in the land, God raises an Elijah. So Elijah appeared, Elijah the Tishbite, and he proclaimed drought. That's the first attack on Baal. Why did he pronounce drought? The reason is because Baal is known as the god of storm, rainfall, and fertility. So if you're indeed the god of storm and fertility, then I'm going to pronounce drought so that there will be no rainfall, then prove your worth. So he did so for 3.5 years. No rain, no farming. It was a drought all over the land. They have to go and look for grass to feed their sheep, and they blame Elijah for it. Baal couldn't do anything. And it depicts the 7.5 years, the 7 years, the beast will reign. We're going to explore it, how Elijah's 3.5 years proclamation of drought fit into it. Then afterwards, we have a challenge. The second challenge came, Mount Carmel showdown in 1 Kings 18, where 450 prophets of Baal faced off against Elijah. Baal couldn't bring fire from heaven. God brought fire from heaven, and all the prophets of Baal were executed. Elijah restores God's altar, and indirectly restoring God's worship, the worship of Yod-Heh in Israel. So let's look at Elijah's confrontation with the seekers. So from Baal to Beelzebub, let's look at the seekers. So Jehu also pegs Baal. 2 Kings 9 to chapter 9 to chapter 10. Elijah is taken up. His disciple Elisha anoints Jehu. Jehu kills Jezebel, the queen who brought Baal worship into Israel. Ahab's family is wiped clean. All Baal priests are killed. Remember, Elijah kills the prophet, Jehu kills the priest. So it left behind some remnant of Baal worship. It was like a judgment, a sword was against Baal worship. And in 2 Kings 10 verse 27, they demolished the pillar of Baal and they tore down the temple of Baal and made it a latrine to this day. Oh, that's so beautiful. So it was a decisive thing. I mean, it was a physical peg. But then there was some lingering Baal worship. For example, across the mainland Israel, the territory of God, areas like Ekron, which was a Palestinian area, a small city-state around the coast, they worship Baal. Baal worship was still going on. This was outside the territory of mainland Israel. And then we have to understand that King Ahaziah fell sick. That was before Jehu. He fell sick. And remember, Elijah had already eliminated most of Baal's worship, the main Baal worship, like the prophets of Baal and Jehu, what do you call it? This man, Ahab is already dead. And they were left only Jezebel and the priest of Baal. And King Ahaziah of Israel, he fell sick, and he sent a messenger to go and consult Baal of Zebub. No, they call him Baal Zebub. Actually, the name is the god of Ekron. That's Baal Zebub, the god of flies, the god of the demons, right? And Elijah intercept him, questioning him. Is it because there is no God in Israel that they're going to inquire of Baal Zebub, the god of Ekron? And Ahaziah died in the process. And we see two keys things. Even when Baal was smashed in Israel, the kings still tried to consult him. And Elijah, in later Elisha prophetic line, confronted those who were seeking. People were still seeking. The thing is not there, but we're still searching for it. We're looking for remnant. It's like people today will be reading books and all kinds of things just to connect themselves to the evil that was and has been destroyed. Same thing applies here. There were those who were seeking this entity, and so they were not just looking for the priest. But then eventually, what happened? What happened is this: we have to know Beelzebub is translated as the Lord of Flies, which is not conclusive, okay? But then we know they translate Baal as Lord. We're going to see what it means truly. So later, it transformed into Beelzebul, a name given to the prince of demons in Matthew 12:24, and it shows continuity: Baal worship, demon worship, direct allegiance to Satan. And we have Baal names and titles across the various regions, because this entity keeps on changing its name. It tries to be elusive, to hide itself. For example, we have in Israel, in Canaan, we have Baal, which is translated as Lord or Master. It's a generic title applied to many shrines. They translate it as Lord, as a Master. So we have Baal Peor, the Lord of Peor. We have Baal Zebub, the Lord of Flies, which later became Beelzebul, the Prince of Demons. And then we have Baal Melkat, the king of the city. It's a Tyrian Baal worshipped by Beelzebub. No, Beelzebub, Jezebel. Jezebel was a Phoenician, a Sidonian priestess who became a queen of Israel. Then we have Baal Melkat. He's a patron god of Tyre and Sidon, from where Jezebel came from. Baal Shamin, the Lord of the heavens. So we have Baal who rules the heaven, and then we have those. But then, if you look at the word Baal, Baal doesn't actually, it's not a name. It's a compound name. Baal. The son of Al. So we're talking about the son of Al who rules the heaven, the son of Al who is actually who rides the cloud, the son of Al who rules the demons. So these are trying to tie themselves to something we need to explore. So we have the Syrian and Mesopotamian name like Hadad, a storm god, or Aram, or a Ugarit equivalent to Baal. And then we have Baal, which is a Babylonian form of the word Lord, applied to Medoc, and is even spoken of by Jeremiah when he was making a mockery of the gods of Babylon. And we have Ishkor, or Adad, a Sumerian and Akkadian storm god aligned with Baal attributes. And if you look further, we have also other Baal names and titles across the region. We have in Egypt, we have Baal Set, identifying with Set, god of storms, chaos, and foreigners. And then we have which was other part which was introduced to Hiskel's rule, continued into the new kingdom as a foreign storm deity, though they brought Baal from nearby nation Canaan into Egypt. In Arabia, we also have the Hubal, or Habal, which is the main deity of the pre-Islamic Mecca, often linked with Baal. It's actually Baal himself in another form, associated with the divination by arrows and, guess again, fertility. And we have other Arabian deities like Allah, Al-Uzza, Al-Lat, Al-Manat, and they share the same traits with Baal's consort, Ashtoreth, and Ashtat. These are female deity. So in North Africa or Carthage, we have Baal Hamon, chief Carthaginian god worshipped with child sacrifice. Yeah, as it is with them. Consort, that is Tanit, and is parallel to Ashtoreth. That's the wife of Baal Hamon. And so if you put all the other names across the other wider region, we have the Greek gods, Zeus and Jupiter, Roman, which is also depicted as a storm and sky god, and is the same as this Baal entity. That's the Greco-Roman syncretism. And we have the Chronos Saturn, sometimes identified with Baal Hamon, devourer of children. And then if you go further, we see the evolution of the names of this entity. Starting with Baal, it went on to Baalzebub, and then now what do we have? We have here Baalzebul. So who is this entity? Who is this entity called Baal? Who is he in effect? So we have Baal, which is translated as Lord or Master or Owner. And the Hebrew word is Baal. You see, the Hebrew word gives us the true meaning, unlike the English that blends the two words. It's actually a single word consisting of two syllables. We have Ba and we have Al, which they translate as Lord and Master Possessor. But we need to look at it intrinsically to know what that word really is. So it became a title, just like the word God is a title. In fact, the creator doesn't call himself that. It is actually Yod-Heh-Vav. That's his real name. So from the Hebrew, which is Baal, if you split it, you find that Baal is actually consisting of two words, Baal. And in the Hebrew, it means son of hell. So Bahamon means son of hell, who is the ruler of the clouds. Then we have Bashameh, who is the ruler of the heavens. These entities try to align themselves with their origin. In the Ugaritic text, that's 14th century BCE, Rash Shamara, Ba is called the son of El, the head of the pantheon. So the word Baal means son of El. Who is the El? We have to find out who the El is. El means God in Northwest Semitic word. Elohim is a Hebrew form of the word El. It refers to lesser spirits. For example, Psalm 82 verse 1. Even angels are called Elohim. So in Canaanite religion, El is a chief god, a father of gods. And his son, Baal, who is a storm god, challenges his kingship. And in biblical perspective, El is corrupted title for fallen divine beings. What you may call fallen angels. They are not fallen, they fell anyway. They disobeyed God, they became human. And these are the El, the Elohim. According to Genesis, we call them B'nai Elohim. They are the sons of God. In Psalm 82 and Psalm 87, they are called Elim, or the Elohim, the mighty ones. So here, Baal is the offspring of these beings. He's the offspring of these beings. He is actually a Shadim, a disembodied Nephilim spirit who is masquerading as God. So if you take the first word El, it can be pronounced as El or Al. It means power, shining one of God. The root El means mighty or powerful one. And it is also linked to the shining ones as the B'nai Elohim, the angelic beings, the watchers. In ancient Semitic theology, El is a supreme power, his sons, gods, watchers, and B'nai Elohim. That is according to the biblical picture. But that is not all. We see Baal trying to claim to be the son of God. And there's no doubt about it because he is actually a Nephilim. Because if he's a shed or a Nephilim, that means he's a son of El. If he's a son of El, then in biblical lens, he is not a true God, but a hybrid offspring of a fallen watcher. That makes him a demon, not an archangel. So this being Baal, son of El, the El is referring to the watchers, because the watchers are called Elohim, the B'nai Elohim. That's the son of El, who is the ruler of. So they try to state their purpose based on their origin. They claim connection to their fathers, their watchers, in order to exemplify their rule. This matches a pattern. Pre-flood watchers take women, and Nephilim are born. They are spirits. That's the Nephilim spirit, the Shedim, after their death, becomes the demons. Baal, worship across Canaan and beyond, is a deified Nephilim spirit. If we look clearly, we have gods like Ella, or which is probably called Allah today, which they pronounce as God. In ancient Semitic, Ella or Ela or Allah, it is actually translated the God. The God. Over time, it is shortened into the Arabic form Allah. Okay, originally it's a generic title. The God, it's like the Lord, as in the case of Baal. No, in Canaanite Phoenician context, Baal was often equated with the God of the land. So the word "de" is there. I mean, you don't always have a God called the God. So Baal, who is the Lord or the Master, you see, the Lord or the Master is the equivalent of the word Allah in its pre-Islamic use, which is the God or the Master. And the continuity of worship in Arabia, in Huba, Hausa, Alat, and Manat is centered around the high deity in the Kaaba, strongly tied to Baal tradition of the Levant. So we have Baal Zebub, Satan, and Baal Zebub, Lord of the Flies, mocking title for the Baal of Ekron. And later, the Jewish text actually changed it to Beelzebub, Lord of the dwelling of demons. And the Pharisees accused Jesus of casting out demons by Beelzebub, prince of the demons. And then Jesus clarifies. They didn't say Jesus Christ is casting demons by Satan. He said you are casting demons by Beelzebub. And Jesus Christ clarifies that this is Satan himself. He said, if Satan cast out Satan, he replaced the word Beelzebub with Satan, telling us that Beelzebub is Satan. So here we see the evolution of his names as the chief of the demon. So still on, if we look at it theologically, we're not just looking at the Canaanite storm deity. Etymologically, Baal means Lord, the Master, the God. Baal is the son of El, the offspring of the fallen ones, the watchers. It makes him a Shedim hybrid, a Nephilim spirit elevated as a god. And his name is seen across the regions, nations in different forms. We the deception is so strong that sometimes even the way we pronounce things becomes wrong, and it's all part of the deceptive mechanism to hide the identity of this being. And it is written that when the son of perdition is revealed, we will know who he is. But the question is, who is it going to be revealed to? Okay, it's going to be revealed to us. The son of perdition will be revealed to us. We, the church, the Christian, the born again, we have to know who this entity is. His cult spreads across the Middle East and globally. He's been worshipped in many ways. So the name Beelzebub becomes Beelzebub, and that is Satan, chief of the demons. Then we'll be exploring the book of Revelation, not in this particular presentation, but in another presentation where we will decipher. But here I'm laying the foundation for you to understand the book of Revelation. So we are looking at the identities of the dragon and the ancient serpent. So Revelation 12:29 states the great dragon was cast out, the ancient serpent called the devil and the Satan, who deceived the whole world. So we see titles upon titles and descriptions like dragon, ancient serpent, devil, and Satan. By carefully dissecting these words, you'll be able to understand so many things. So let's ignore the dragon because he is identified as the ancient serpent. What is ancient here? Ancient means it was an old serpent. That serpent existed. And who is the serpent that of old that we know of? That is linked to Eden, Genesis 3:15. And then he is called the devil or Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. Deception is not when somebody comes to you and trying to convince you. The deception takes on different forms and shapes and appearance. So this is the same entity Jesus identified as Beelzebub. Jesus called Beelzebub Satan. And in Revelation, an angel calls the dragon also Satan. So we have to look at the origin in question. And tradition teaches that Satan is a fallen angelic cherub, and they quote Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28. But this text doesn't speak about that. Yes, we'll be exploring it as we move forward. So Satan is not actually an archangel. It's not a matter of what if. He's not an archangel. He's not a cherub. According to the Septuagint version, he's a hybrid Nephilim spirit who rules over the demons, and that it aligns perfectly with the teachings of Enoch and Jesus' identification. And Enoch identifies them as the Nephilim spirits as demon, the dead Nephilim spirits as demon. Jesus identified Beelzebub as the prince of demons, who is the prince of demons as Satan himself. And Revelation gives us a clearer picture of what we are dealing with. That is, Satan now appears as a dragon, and he's the same entity behind Baal, Medoc, Hubal, Zeus. Because if Beelzebub is Satan, then all the various variants of Baal become Satan himself, and he's seen as a dragon. So, what happened here, as we see, how did Beelzebub become the dragon? So, if he is Satan, how is he a dragon in the book of Revelation? Now we have to go back to the genesis of the story. Everything started at Beth Peor, Baal and Moses' body. So Moses dies on Mount Nebo, opposite Beth Peor, and at Beth Peor, there's a shrine of Baal. Okay, there's a shrine of Baal, what we call Baal Peor, the Baal of Peor, and it's a shade. He's a demonic Nephilim spirit. He has already deceived Israel through Balaam into sexual idolatry. Satan contends with Michael over Moses' body. Wow, what does Baal, who is now Satan, got to do with the body of Moses? Because we in Jude 1 we say Satan fought over. They also call him the devil, and now Jesus identifies Satan as Baal. So what is he doing with the body of Moses? The question is why. That's because if Satan, Beelzebub, could possess Moses' corpse, he could create a counterfeit resurrection. Yeah, Moses would have come back to life. It would have been very miraculous because Baal could have used Satan, could have used the body of Moses to deceive Israel. It was to be a kind of zombie-like resurrection. And the prince of Israel had to stop him because Moses was a ruler of Israel across the wilderness. And Michael had to stop him so that Israel remained under God's authority. Satan, who is now Beelzebub, the archdemon, and not an angel, become exposed by Jesus Christ thousands of years later that he is Beelzebub. He's the prince of demons. He's the Satan that we have been dealing with. This ties Satan's identity directly to the Nephilim spirits because he's not an angelic cable. Because Baal is a son of El. We all know El is a watcher who is now in Tartarus. He is the chief of the Shadim, the highest ranking Nephilim spirit enthroned through millennia of worship as Baal. Now that brings us to the Eden puzzle. No Nephilim yet, because in Revelation he said he's the serpent of old, and we equated that serpent to the serpent of Eden. So if Genesis 3 is saying the serpent tempts Eve, we have to also know that no Nephilim existed at that time. The Nephilim had not been born yet. So how does he become the serpent? So we have to know that the serpent was not originally a Nephilim. It wasn't a creature, a humanoid creature. It was a beast. It's just an animal, according to Genesis. As some people try to translate it into a humanoid figure, no, it was a beast. The scripture says he was the wisest among the beasts, not among God's creation. Then what happened? How did the serpent become mentioned in Revelation? The reason is simple. When Beelzebub failed to possess the body of Moses to deceive the world, he possessed the serpent spirit because the serpent was a formidable creature, very wise and cunning. And Beelzebub also was a ruler of the demons. I mean, that would have been a nice vessel to wear. I mean, a suit that allows you to deceive because it gives you wisdom. He's able to harness the wisdom of the serpent. And with the power available, he's able to deceive the whole world. What the Bible calls the dragon, Satan, are the same as serpent, ancient serpent, and the deceiver of the world, the same creature that deceived Eve. So, the ancient serpent of Eden, a demon-possessed creature, used Satan's first mask. Actually, it wasn't yet Satan yet, but he was able to accuse God to mankind. He knew he had wisdom to do that. So remember the seed of the woman versus the seed of the serpent, and that foreshadowed that we're not just looking at a serpent here, we're looking at a line of corrupted Nephilim. So over time, the spirit behind the Eden serpent evolves in biblical evolution. So what happened is this: in Eden, the serpent was possessed by archdemon. That is, when God kills the serpent, I've done it in the previous study. You should get that video and you'll know it better. The serpent still existed. The serpent still appears in the book of Revelation. The question is, how did it happen? Because the book of Revelation is the end of the story. Genesis is the beginning. And this serpent should have been dead, but it is still mentioned at the later stage. That means the serpents survived the flood, survived so many things. And when Baal failed to possess the body of Moses, he then possessed the body of the serpent. So Baal, Lord of Peor, Baal-zebub of Ekron, in Jesus' day, he appears as Baal-zebub, prince of demons. Jesus Christ exposes him. In the book of Revelation, he and it has transmogrified into the great dragon, a big dragon. The word great means big. That ancient serpent, it was just a simple serpent, but together with Baal-zebub, it became something big. And they are still called the devil and Satan. He's called the devil and Satan, 2 in 1. So that is something that can keep you thinking, because the dragon is a full manifestation of the same spirit, now ruler of the kingdoms of the world. That's Satan himself. So we look at it that this entity continues its identity to let us know that the serpent of Eden was not a watcher or an angel. It was just an animal vessel. The spirit that possessed it, the same archdemon who is a Shedim, Beelzebub, possessed it after the flood. The same entity reasserted itself as Baal and the prince of demons, worshipped at Peor, Tyre, Ekron, Carthage, Mecca, etc., other places. Revelation unmasks or reveals him as Satan, and he's Beelzebub. He became the dragon, and he's also the same as the ancient serpent. So it creates some kind of a theological force that we need to know. Satan is not an archangel. He's not a rival of Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh. He's not the opposite of God. He's just a hybrid. He's less being among God's creation. He's the chief of the Nephilim spirit, a disembodied hybrid, a shade who from Eden onward has sought embodiment, worship, and demon. He wasn't necessarily in Eden, because when Eden was lost to Adam, are we to say before the flood they didn't have access to Eden? Eden was still there. So it is reasonable to say Satan would have had access to him, because it is written in Ezekiel that states that Satan was in Eden. So it makes sense to say Eden would have existed for 1,600 years before the great flood would have taken it, would have destroyed it. And during that time, the serpent was there. And the serpent is a reptile. It can survive the flood. So that is something we should actually consider. So he possesses the Eden serpent, and then he becomes a dragon. He becomes great and big. They transform, then becomes a global deceiver. The true seed of the woman crushes his head at the cross and is finally cast into a lake of fire in the book of Revelation. So now that we are laying foundation for the study of the book of Revelation, let us look at these three entities, the three questions to John the Baptist. So in John 1 verse 19 to 21, a number of priests and Levites were sent to ask John the following question. So, are you the Christ, or what is called translated as the Messiah? They also asked him, are you Elijah? And they also asked him, are you the prophet? He didn't say a prophet, he said the prophet, because Israel was expecting a unique prophet, a specific prophet. That would have been the last prophet, the prophet. So they didn't say, are you a prophet? He said, are you the prophet? So the word is the prophet, and the Messiah is very important. The word there is a definite article. So those were the three figures Israel was expecting. Messiah, who was supposed to be from the line of David, Elijah, who is the forerunner of the day of the Lord, and we have dead prophet who is like Moses. So we see this fulfillment in Jesus, who manifested and was recognized as both the Messiah and the prophet, like Moses that he was being depicted. John the Baptist became the Elijah who was to come, and Jesus revealed that. So there are three patterns here: the Messiah or Christ, Elijah the forerunner, and the prophet like Moses. So those are the three expectations. Now let's look at a chain of event here. It will help you to understand the book of Revelation very well. So we also have a counterfeit trinity in the book of Revelation. If you look at it carefully, and I'll be exploring it very deep. So in the book of Revelation 2, we see those three patterns again. We have the dragon, whom we know to be Satan, and he acts like the God of this world, and he plays a counterfeit role as God, the Father. He tries to be the Father, the head. And then we have the first beast. So if you look at it, we have the first beast from the sea, and then over here, that is the book of Revelation, chapter 13, verse 1 to 8. What he does is that he receives authority from the dragon, from Satan himself, to act on his behalf. He tries to act like the Son of God. Now, we're going to reveal who this entity is. So, he plays one role among the three expectations. He acts like the Messiah, the Son of God. Okay, and he has a mortal wounded head, and it was healed. Remember, the seed of the woman was to strike his head. So we see the head is wounded. Now, this will be the false Christ. He tries to act like he's Christ. Because remember, Israel, the Jews rejected Jesus as the Messiah. So they're still expecting the Messiah. So to fulfill his taste, his lust, he will send, Satan will send this entity. We're going to see how all these things are going to happen. We have the second beast. He comes from the earth, unlike the first one who came from the sea. And he plays two roles. He's seen as a false prophet, but he's going to actually fulfill two of the three expectations. Now, he does two things. He performs miracles, and then he calls down fire from heaven. It's trying to mimic Elijah. And he deceives the nations to worship the first beast. Remember, Elijah called down fire, and he diverted worship back to Yod-Heh-Vav, to God himself. Now, this entity, the second beast, does the opposite. He calls the same fire from heaven, and he deceives mankind to worship the God who answered his prayer to bring down fire from heaven. And that God, Satan, dragon Beelzebub, is trying to act like the true God, Yod-Heh-Vav. And this is a false, two things here, false Elijah, and it becomes a false prophet. Because there are three expectations. One becomes the Messiah, the first beast. The second beast fulfills the role of the false Elijah and the false prophet. So we have the false triumph here, like a trinity. We have the expectations of Israel. They're expecting a Messiah who comes from the line of Judah, and it was fulfilled in Jesus Christ. He came from the line of Judah. He is the heir apparent. Joseph was to be the crown prince. Joseph was to be the king. Had the kingdom of Judah still been there, Joseph, the husband of Mary, would have been the king. That would have made Jesus the crown prince of Israel. So physically and spiritually, Jesus is a king. That one, there's no doubt. Then Israel rejects Jesus. So to fill in the gap of the expectations, Satan summons the first beast who comes to claim to be the false Christ. Then the second expectation is Elijah. He is the forerunner. He is a worker of miracles. He turns Israel from Baal worship to God. And it was John the Baptist who came. Jesus Christ revealed that John was the Elijah to come, but they did whatever they wanted to do with him. They killed him. They also did not recognize John the Baptist, though they knew he was something, but they killed him. The Romans killed him because the Israelites would have accepted him, but the Romans killed him through Herod. Now, guess what? This also left a vacuum open. They were still expecting Elijah. So, guess what? The dragon summons the second beast. We're going to see how all these things are happening. And when this entity comes, he comes to divert worship back to the dragon, who is Baal himself. And just as Elijah summoned fire to turn Israel's heart to God, this false Elijah and false prophet will divert worship from God to the Baal, to Baal. Remember, he's a deceiver. So remember, Elijah was a prophet. So this second beast fulfills two roles, as the Elijah to come and as a prophet. Then the last one is the prophet, like Moses. Jesus fulfills that role. It's written in the book of Acts. And guess what? The dragon, the false god, claims divine authority, but then he summons the second beast to play that role. So we see the strategic deception here, or the strategy of deception. Just as Israel looked forward for these three figures, the whole world will one day embrace these counterfeit entities. Satan as the false god, the beast from the sea as the false Messiah, the beast from the earth as the false prophet, who is also Elijah. Together, this unholy trinity, they're going to deceive the world. What is the aim? To make Baal the god of the world and to cause the world to worship him. But he is not, he's a Nephilim, he's a demon. You're supposed to worship Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh. So we look at the prophet to come, which was spoken of in Deuteronomy. He said, the Lord will raise a prophet like me from among you, from your brethren. So the prophet to come will come from the line of Israel. So you must listen to him. Then I will raise for them a prophet like you from among their brethren. I will put my words in his mouth, and he will speak to them all that I command. And whoever does not listen to my words that he shall speak in my name, I myself will kill him. Jesus Christ, I myself will call him to account. Jesus Christ said, I've come in the name of my Father. So that means that prophet was Jesus. Then the prophecy of Elijah to come is in Malachi. He said, I will send Elijah, the prophet, Elijah, the prophet, before the great and terrible day of the Lord comes. And he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest I come and strike the land with a curse. So we have the key points here. Elijah will return. His mission, reconciliation, restoring family faithfulness, covenant faithfulness. His appearing, he comes as a sign of the day of the Lord. Then we have the coming Messiah, who is also a prophet, and Jeremiah calls him the Lord our righteousness. Ezekiel calls him one shepherd from David's line, and Daniel calls him the Son of Man, who received dominion from the ancient of days. Micah calls him the Messiah to be born in Bethlehem, whose origins are from of old and from ancient days. He's supposed to be up in Ancient of Days or Ancient Days, similar to the title of the Creator. So we have Zechariah 9:9, where the king comes humble, riding on a donkey. And Zechariah 12:10 said, they will look on me whom they pierced. They will look on me. We're going to explore that. I'll be exploring a study on the deity, the Godhead. So you see, God here is saying, they will look on me whom they pierced. This is the Lord speaking. But who was pierced? We call him Jesus, the one who was pierced. But the Lord is saying he was the one whom they pierced. So that means Jesus is Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh. Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh is God. Jesus is God. God is Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh. Or what do you call Yahweh or Jehovah or Yahweh is Jesus Christ. The name needs to be preserved. It's a powerful name, a holy name. It shouldn't be just mentioned anyway, anyhow, or else you bring judgment and damnation. So John 1:21 and verse 45 say the Jews in Jesus' days were expecting the prophet, not a prophet. You should know that. Act 3:23 verse 23, Peter quotes Deuteronomy 18 indirectly, declaring that Jesus is that prophet. Stephen repeats the same in his testimony before his martyrdom. After the feeding of the 5,000, the people said, this is truly the prophet who is to come into the world. So Jesus Christ fixed the role. Jesus Christ is the greater Moses, and he gave a new covenant. He taught on mountain. He fed multitudes with bread from heaven. He delivered from slavery to sin. He intercedes as a mediator. And that is a fulfillment in the New Testament. John the Baptist identifies Elijah who was to come. John will go in the spirit and power of Elijah to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children. In Matthew 11 verse 14, Jesus says of John, if you are willing to accept it, he is Elijah who is to come. Matthew 17 verse 12 to 13, Jesus confirmed John fulfilled the Elijah prophecy. So, yet Elijah himself also appears at the transfiguration alongside Moses, reinforcing the prophetic messianic connection. So on the mountain of transfiguration, we see the three promises. We see Elijah, Moses, and Jesus Christ. The two are fulfilled in his word. Now we shift our attention to Daniel's vision and the kings behind the kingdom. We're going to look at kings and kingdoms in prophecy, from Daniel's vision to Isaiah's kings in Sheol. So let's start by looking at Daniel's interpretation of Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the statue, which is very famous and popular. And if you look at the dream itself, this is what Nebuchadnezzar saw: a great statue, dazzling and terrifying. And he had a head of gold, a chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, and legs of iron, feet partly of iron, partly clay, a stone cut without human hands struck the statue's feet, shattering it. The whole statue crumbled to dust and is blown away by the wind. And that there's something we have to note here with regards to the coming of the Lord Jesus. Well, if you read the Bible without the knowledge of certain aspects like the rapture, if you read it holistically, and even from Daniel, you can see the stone come once. The stone actually, it came once to hit it. And unlike the popular rapture and second coming idea, see, if they'll tell you the rapture is a secret thing, but it is nowhere written in the Bible except it was only spoken by Paul. Even in the book of Matthew, Jesus Christ never spoke about such a thing. We're going to explore this in the book of Revelation. There will be a rapture, but not the way we are expecting it. It's not like Jesus Christ will come, go, and come back again. No. He came once, according to Daniel. The stone comes once to crush the feet. We are actually at the feet. The feet is partly iron and partly clay. That is where we are now. An era where we have humans and non-humans living together. Partly iron, partly clay. And then it tells us that the stone came to hit it. A stone cut without human hands struck the statue's feet. The idea here, we have depicted what the end time will be. That the stone, we don't have a stone coming to hit the feet, and then later on another stone comes again. No, it's just one stone. Jesus Christ comes once. He came to die on the cross. Now, when he's come, he just comes once. When he comes, the rapture, the second coming, everything will be fulfilled in one thing. And a lot of things will have to happen before it is going to happen. So the idea of a secret rapture, well, is difficult. It's difficult to track it biblically, honestly speaking. We know Jesus Christ is coming, but we don't know how the whole rapture idea fits in. Is something mind-boggling. So the stone hits the feet once, and then it becomes a mountain filling the whole world. That is it. The stone comes in, destroys the kingdoms of the world, and it becomes a mountain. It fills the whole world. It ends there. It ends there. It doesn't come again. It doesn't come and then go back and come, or it doesn't come to take the clay. We probably the stone would have come and suck up the clay part, which represent humans or maybe the saints, take them to heaven, and then come back again and crush it. It doesn't say that. It states that the stone comes in to crush. It comes in once. It comes to destroy it once. So, and before it does so, we have to reach a certain stage. So this rapture ideology, some call it the post-trib, mid-trib. I think what we should be looking out for is the tribulation, not a rapture. But the tribulation is clearly written there. We have to be tested. God tests whatever He has created. He said that His word is like silver, tried in fire 7 times, like 7 years. These are prophetic statements stating that the saints will have to be tested. We have to be tested. So if you look at Daniel's vision, he said he saw the head of gold, and that represents Babylon. Babylon exists around 605 to 539 BC. It represents splendor, world, glory, power, and then it goes on to the chest of silver and the belly of thighs, and that is Greece, which existed, led by Alexander the Great around 331 BC to 146 BC. Then we have the legs of iron, purely iron Rome, the formation of Rome around 146 BC. It took over and lasted until 476 BC when it began to disintegrate into Western Rome and Eastern Rome, the Byzantine, until 1453 AD. That's way long time. It lasted for more than 1,000 years. Then we have the feet of, if you have the feet and the toes, the feet is partly iron and partly clay mixed together, divided kingdom. So we're going to explore what this thing is, and then we look at the stone. The stone, there's only one stone, not stones. The stone comes in once. It doesn't come and go like you are saying. If there's a rapture before the second coming, then they mean the stone will have to come and then go back, and the stone will have to come again. But here the stone comes in once. So the idea of the rapture is something is very bizarre. So let's look at the interpretation given by Daniel. Here, the key word in connection to the Shadim revelation in the Bible, it says that they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they will not cleave. And then it goes on to mention the fact that the they here, they are not humans, as it refers to non-human entities, and there's a reason for it. So we have two groups of people, the seed of man, the line of Adam, the human lineage, and then the non-humans. And this brings to memory Genesis 6, where the sons of God mingled with the daughters of men to produce the hybrid. And it seems that in the end times, there will be an attempt to re-establish hybridization, but it won't be successful this time. And the reason because we have another group of people on earth, the sons of God, and their presence hinders so many things from happening. I mean, a single child of God in a place can hinder a lot of demonic activity. We have no idea because we are the temple of God. When the children of God are, God is there. The whole heaven is there. The entire heavenly authority is present there. A lot happens. Why does this thing matter? Why must we be concerned about the day? The reason because they were, if the day were humans, there would be no mystery about it. Because this day were not humans. It brings to memory the days of Noah, and we look at the final empire, which will be an unstable mix. So yes, there will be an attempt to a certain extent, we can call it a successful attempt to produce hybrid beings using human genetic material, human tissues, and non-human tissue to produce some kind of a blend. It will look like an avatar. It's not going to be successful. So instead of producing a real hybrid in our time, that's not going to happen. What they're going to have is a tissue, a human body tissue possessed by these spirit beings to rule. It's somewhat like an avatar thing. Yes, I do agree to that ideology also. But guess what? They shall not cleave, meaning that attempt is gonna fail big time. So the statue is decoded in this way. Each body part represents a kingdom, and every kingdom must have a king. So here in Daniel's interpretation, he equates a king to a kingdom, and it makes sense in that way. And if we read Daniel 7, which talks about the beast, he first identified the beast as kingdoms, but wait a minute, he also identified the beast as kings. This communication is very interesting. So it creates a prophetic pattern where we have kings and kingdoms which become an inseparable entity. And then we also look at Gabriel's encounter. So take note, we have kingdoms. My emphasis will be on kings here, because every king must have a kingdom. So if there's a king, there's a kingdom. If there's a kingdom, there's a king. So take note of the word king. In Gabriel's encounter, Gabriel is resisted by the prince of Persia. And he tells Daniel, he said, I was left there with the kings of Persia. Wow. How many kings ruled Persia? So we all know Persia was ruled not only by men, but by a demonic arch ruler, because this prince of Persia fought Gabriel. Gabriel is a spirit being. So for you to fight, you must also be a spirit being. And then, if Persia is ruled by a ruler, a demonic ruler, an arch ruler, who are those kings of Persia that Gabriel was left with? These are sub rulers. And you're going to understand it fully in the next presentation of the book of Revelation. We're going to look at how the kingdoms of the Bible were distributed. A king with a king. We have people who are like king of kings. There are kings under them. These opposed Gabriel until Gabriel, Michael intervened. So who are these kings? My emphasis is on the kings. Who are these kings? For us to know who they are, we go to Isaiah 14, where we are taken into Sheol to view where Sheol is revealed to us. We are not taken to Sheol, but Sheol is brought to our view, and we see kings in Sheol. These are dead rulers. These dead rulers, they rose up from their thrones in Hades, and they did so because they were amazed at Lucifer of Hillel ben Shakar when he fell. According to the Septuagint Bible, these kings were identified as Gibborim or Rephaim, and they are the spirits of Nephilim because they are still kings. When humans die, they don't become kings in hell, in Hades or Sheol. So who are these dead souls that are still kings? And they even have thrones. They are enthroned in hell, in Hades or Sheol. Who are they? But then it doesn't end there. In Luke 4 verse 6, we see Satan making a claim. He told Jesus, all these kingdoms have been delivered to me. So the question is, yes, he is making a claim, but who delivered them to him? So by connecting it with Isaiah 14, we see there are other kings of Sheol. These guys are in hell, they are dead, they can't rule on earth anymore. And we have Satan falling and becoming like them. And we know Satan is the ruler of the demons. So these are the same Shedim, okay, that is being spoken of. All the kingdoms mentioned in Daniel, though outwardly ruled by humans, were spiritually governed by these Nephilim entities from the underworld. This put two pictures together. We have the fallen Satan, we have Isaiah 14. We're talking about Hillel ben Shakar, the shining one, the morning star. That he fell to Sheol, and guess what? In Isaiah 14, verse 9 to 11, he said, the kings of the nations, the Shedim rulers, they rose to greet him. So these kings, who are they? They are the spirits of giants. They're called Gibborims, ancient rulers of the pre-flood kingdom. Why are they dead? What killed them? They were dead mostly because of the great flood. Some of them died, few of them died after the flood during the wars with Chedorlaomer and Moses and Joshua during their military campaign. But majority of these kings, we're not told how many they are, but there are many. They are all dead because they died in the pre-flood era. Satan's claim in the temptation proves that all this authority and the glory of them have been delivered to me. But then by who? Who gave it to them? So the answer here is that yes, the kingdoms were founded by the Nephilims before the great flood. They built mega cities, mega temples, mega structures like we still have them today, like the pyramids of Giza, blah blah. We still don't know how it was built or who built them or when it was built. There are a lot of such structures all over the world. Well, these were built before the great flood. And the kings and the rulers and the founders and the builders of these mega structures were all killed. Now, Beelzebub, who is Satan, who now claims rulership after the death of these Gibborins, tries to convince Jesus to accept his offer of worship, and Christ rejects it because he will later become the rightful heir of all these kingdoms. Written in the book of Revelation that the kingdom of this world has now become the kingdom of his Christ. So this is something I'm going to explore in the next presentation, so I don't want to go so deep into it. So here we have two flood eras. Before the flood, we have the hybrid Nephilim kingdoms ruled by giant kings, the Gibborins. After the flood, they are spirits. The Shedim influenced human rulers, nations, and false gods. We have Babylon, Canaanite, and all kinds of tribes. And here, Satan consolidates all these kingdom as the chief of the Shedim. So we see a prophetic pattern here. Genesis 6, first mingling, and Daniel chapter 2, the prophecy of the end time mingling. So they decided the mingling, they want to do it again, and it doesn't succeed this time. The kings of the Shedim rise to greet the fallen Hillel, and then Satan claims rule over the kingdom because he was seen to be more powerful than them, so he rules over their kingdom. And then at a later stage, he manifests in the book of Revelation. So we're going to be exploring these things. But then the most interesting part deals with the kings. So in Isaiah 14, verse 9 to 15, he said, Hades from beneath is embittered to meet thee. All the mighty ones that have ruled over the earth have risen together against thee. He didn't say all the kings of the world. According to the Septuagint version, he didn't say the kings of the world, just kings. He said mighty ones. And then he goes on to say, they have raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. The nation, remember, God divided the nations into 70, and they had kings over them. Now all the kings are dead. Even before the flood, there were kings. All of them are dead. And even in death, in Hades, we thought in Hades people are supposed to be tormented. But here, these guys are not being tormented. They are seated on thrones. They are ruling. To have a throne means you are still a ruler. They are still kings of the nations from hell. And he said, all shall answer and say to thee, we don't know how many are the all. He said, thou also been taken, even as we, and thou art reckoned among us. So all of them died, except one, except the Hillel ben Shakeh, who is Baal. He has been ruling, and as human and as physical human. And finally he dies, he's killed. And he said, thy glory shall come down to Hades, and thy great mirth. Under thee they shall spread corruption, and the worm shall be thy covering. Yes. So here, he said, under thee. That means those kings will serve under him. He said, how has Hillel ben Shakar, Satan Beelzebub, that rose in the morning, fallen from heaven? He that sent orders to all the nations is crushed to the earth. There's a lot of mystery here. This reveals the underworld. It's one of the few places in the Bible that gives us a picture of the underworld, about the Nephilim, the giants that ruled on earth, the Gibborins before the great flood, and few of them after the great flood, and they all died. They were only left with one who ruled, and he was also killed. And now he was also cast down. Okay, he was taken like them, and he also fell down. And now guess what? The other kings rose to greet him, and then he's seen as the one who commanded, who sent orders to the nation. That means he ruled the nation. The nations were a subject to him. Remember, the word nations echoes the division of the nations. He said, but thou hast said in thy heart, I will go up to heaven, I will set my throne above the stars of heaven, I will sit on a lofty mountain, on the lofty mountains towards the north, Mount Zaphon. So this entity from hell decided to go up to heaven. If you were already in heaven, why would you want to go back? Because that's your habitation. But he was never in heaven to start with. He has never been to heaven. So in order for you to go to where you don't have to go, must have the desire. Angels don't desire to go to heaven because that's where they're coming from. Jesus Christ said, he that is above, for he came from above. So he doesn't, going back to where you came from is just normal. He doesn't desire to go back to heaven because he returns back normal to where he came from. If I say I'm like telling someone I want to go back to the earth, you're already from the earth. So he said, I'll go above the clouds and I'll be like the Most High. So he didn't want to replace the Most High, he wanted to be like him. He said, but thou shalt go down to Hades. This is one of the mysterious verses in the Bible. So remember, the kings are called mighty ones. So who are the mighty ones? These are the Gibborim, the Elohim. If you break it down, the word Elohim, El means power or might, All means shining illuminated, Im is plural, means one. So if you put those words together, it also means shining powers or gods, demons, Shedim, as the letter appeared. And they also called the new arrivals, but they just appeared after the flood. They started appearing around the world to people as gods. So God called them the new arrival. Where did they arrive from? They came from hell. They came from Hades. And they are still ruling from the underworld. So we have two groups of people, humans and spiritual kings. And then he said here, Babylon's rule, we have Babylon human rulers. For example, we have Babylon. We have Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, Evil, Merodach. But then Jeremiah says here, he mocks the gods of Babylon. He said, Baal shall be put to shame and Merodach destroyed. Who is Baal? Who is Merodach? The word Baal comes from the word Baal. He's talking about Baal, the ruler of Babylon. He's the head of the kingdoms. So he shall be put to shame and Merodach will be destroyed. We need to explore who this entity. We're going to explore all these entities. Behind the human monarchs stood Shedim kings in Shur. So even though Nebuchadnezzar was ruling, from hell, he was being controlled by Baal or Baal. And that is what went on. Even the second ruler called Belshazzar. Three kings ruled Babylon before Darius came. And Belshazzar is a son of Nebuchadnezzar. Even Merodach is also a son of Belshazzar. Check the name Belshazzar. That is Baal. We have Baal there. If you look at Merodach, even Merodach, it also bears the name Merodach there. So, even Merodach or even Merodach. So, behind the human monarch stood Shedim kings in hell. Human kings serve as the vessel. The Shedim kings, they were the true powers behind the throne. That's why behind every throne there is a power. The throne on earth is a mirror of the throne in Hades. So, there are kings in Hades that are ruling every nation on earth today. They are ruling the nations that were distributed during the days of Peleg, except the land belonging to Israel. Now they are fighting for that land. They want it. They want it now, because that is the place belonging to God. Once they possess it, once they get it, they can now claim whoever rules the land of the Holy Land rules the world. That's the center of authority in the world. That's the center of the universe. If you rule it, it's the capital of the universe. Ruling that place means you are ruling the world. And Baal wants it. He wants that piece of real estate. He wants to rule it. And once he gains it, he can now convince the world that he's God. Because he tries to mimic God in a way. So, what are the keynotes from the statement from Isaiah? So, the verse 9, we see the word all the mighty ones, not some, all the mighty ones. So, these are not just earthly rulers. The translation puts it as the Gibborim, the ancient mighty ones, which in Genesis chapter 6 refers to the Nephilims. And then the mighty ones equates to the Elohims, who are the gods, the new gods, the souls of the dead Nephilim, the Shedim, who are the demons. So the LXS ties, the Septuagint version ties this directly to the scene in Sheol. The Sheol scene is so remarkable. It's something we need to explore. I mean, these are the unexplored territories in the Bible where we are shown what is going on in hell. You don't have to go to hell to see. You can just see it from the Bible. So we see the verse 12, an entity called Helios, where we get the word phosphorus, and it refers to the morning bearer or the light bringer, translated as Lucifer in Latin. And this is where the Lucifer title comes from. In Hebrew, it is, I like the Hebrew version because the Bible is in Hebrew. The Greek puts it at Helios, okay? But in the Hebrew is the word Helel ben Shakar. It gives you a phrase, a statement that tells you about a father and a son figure. One is the father, the other one is the son. You know, in Hebrew, a name, the word Ben means son of. So Helel Ben Shaka means Helel. That's Helel means light. Helel Ben Shaka means Helel, son of Shaka. That means Helel is the son, his father is Shaka. Who is Shaka? Shaka is one of the Nephilims, the watchers who came down. Helel is his son. This entity Helel is the one identified as Satan. So the LSS stresses Hades rather than just Sheol. So you're not just looking at a burial pit, because we don't have, in a burial pit, people are just dead. But the picture in Isaiah 14, it is the realm of the dead spirit. And we thought when people go to hell, they are tormented, they are chained, like in the case of the story of the rich man and Lazarus. But the picture portrayed here in Isaiah of hell is totally different. This is not the kind of hell we are looking at. We're talking about people suffering in hell. These are people ruling. They are enthroned. They are enthroned. They rule. And they are referred to as kings. For you to be a king, you must wear a crown. You must have a throne. So these are kings. And you know, these things are being shown to us in movies all the time, and we don't catch it. We see dark demon entity dressed like a king sitting on a dark throne from hell. And these are the ones ruling. Every throne on earth has its corresponding Nephilim ruler from hell. Every throne was brought from hell. So not everybody can sit on any throne to rule. If the demon does not choose you, you can't rule. That's why not everybody is chosen to rule. You must come from their lineage, because their blood must flow through you. The mocking kings in verse 10 of Isaiah 14 are depicted as recognizing the fallen one as now equal with them. You don't become equal with someone when you're already equal with. That means you wasn't not equal with them earlier. Okay? and he's no longer exalted. He has been condemned. He's a Nephilim. He has been condemned to join those kings, rulers, the Nephilim. So it depicts a lot of information that we need to explore. I'm not going to say I've explored everything yet. We need to learn more. There are a lot of things to learn. This creates avenue for exploration, and that is how the scientific method works and biblical exploration works. It's not like you know everything yet. We are still exploring. So the verse 9, we see there's a key observation, like hell is stir up the dead, all the kings of the nations, not some, and all the nations. You want to know, you go to the table of nations, 70 nations from which we have all the nations today. All of them had a Nephilim ruler after the sons of God rule were rejected. After humans refused the rulership of the watchers, the Nephilim demons took over. And moreover, too, not after the flood, even before the flood, there were kings. These Nephilims were ruled the earth as kings and gods. This is a gathering of ancient rulers. So if you look at the interpretive line, these Shedim rulers, the spirits of the Nephilim, they are disembodied kings who once reigned. They died during the great flood. The verse 10 states, they mock the fallen one. Art thou also become weak as we? Meaning they were stronger, but now they have become weak. To be strong means you are mighty, powerful, strong, great. They once mighty rebel, Helel ben Saka, Beelzebub, now shares their fate. And remember, Jesus Christ said, I beheld Satan fall as lightning. He fell. Maybe it could be that is a picture, because this is actually a prophecy of what will happen. And Jesus saw Satan fall as lightning. It could be it here, or it could be the war in heaven where he was cast down. So there are two possibilities we are still trying to explore. So this is just a starting point. So we have Lucifer, who is also Hillel, who is the son of the morning. The morning is a star in Job. We know we have morning stars. They sang to God. These are the watchers, and they came to produce a child, produce children. One of them became Hillel. And the figure who fell is Satan. His ambition is to usurp the heavenly throne and the divine council. He wanted to rule over the divine council. When he said he rule over the angels, talking about the divine council. Whoever rule over the divine council rule over our reality. And he wanted to take the place of God. So his final destiny is the pit, the Sheol. He'll go to the bottomless pit. He'll go to the Sheol. You go to Sheol where the demons are, where he'll be bound for 1,000 years. And then he'll be released later on. So in the LSX, in the Septuagint version, we see clearly that the mighty ones are the rulers of old. These were the Nephilim, the Shedim, who have now become Shedim. Hello, who is Lucifer? He falls, and the spirits of the dead rulers rise to meet him in Hades. And this is going to happen in the future. Most probably it happened during the days of Jesus when he saw Satan fall as lightning, or it may have happened around his time. We're going to explore the war in heaven also, then to tell us when he fell, because this one is a prophecy. He said this strengthens the interpretation that these kings are not ordinary human monarchs. These are pre-flood demonic rulers. These are Nephilim rulers who died in the pre-flood. All the kings died. The same Shedim Jesus later identifies as the powers behind the kingdoms of the world. So in conclusion, Daniel's interpretation gives us a picture of the statue which represents the kingdoms of the world. And we need to know that if there's a kingdom, there must also be a king. And there is some kind of parallelism between the later vision Daniel had of the beast and also the statue, because in that vision he identifies the beast as both kings and kingdom. And in the prophetic language, a king is the same as is equal to a kingdom, and in vice versa. And when Daniel encountered Gabriel, he explained that the prince of Persia resisted him, which was one of the Nephilim entities that ruled over Persia after humans had rejected the rule of the watchers. And Gabriel was held back there with the kings of Persia with Michael. So the prince of the ruler, the arch ruler of Persia, resisted him, and he was like they detained him there with the kings of Persia. Very remarkable. This shows that Persia was not merely ruled by human monarchs, because we know the kings of Persia, we know them by name, we know them historically, we even know how long they ruled, we have all the evidence. But who fought Gabriel? For you to find Gabriel, who is a spirit, you must be a spirit himself. That means Persia was ruled by an arch ruler, a Nephilim entity, who also had sub-rulers who were also Shadim, and they all governed. So in every country, in every nation, there's an arch ruler there, a Shadim, and then there are areas that have been ruled, because if you check the book of Ezekiel, every nation, city, town, borough are all ruled by entities. So it's a hierarchy. Something I'm going to explain in the book of Revelation. These same rulers are seen in Isaiah 14, where kings with thrones in Hades are described. I mean, kings in Hades, kings in hell. That is unthinkable. They are described as Gibborim or Raphaim. Who are they? These are the souls of the dead Nephilim, spirits that once ruled on earth during the Great Flood, mostly and few years after the Great Flood. They ruled physically until they were killed. Like we have kings like Og, king of Bashan, Sihon, king of Bashan. We have Abba, who is the father of the Anakites. We have Amor, who is also the father of the Amorites. All these entities were rulers. So from hell, they still exercise their influence on earth. We have to understand that it was these kingdoms that Satan claimed as his own. All the nations of the world, the 70 nations that were formed after the flood, later on rejected the rulership of the watchers and God and turned to the worship of the Shadim. All these kings were under the rulership of Satan. And there are a lot of things we need to explore. Like he said, all these kingdoms have been delivered to me, and I give them to whom I will. We need to explore. We need to know when it was given, who gave it to them, and why he's making those claims. Because he's now a spirit, but he's still a custodian of those kingdoms. He was once human, but now a spirit. So we want to have answers to them. So for now, the answer is that who gave him this kingdom? So the answer will come from the other kings, the mighty ones who are in hell, who stood from their throne to greet him. Even in that, they still have thrones. We don't have thrones in hell. They are, but then the Bible is in God. In fact, who showed us this is God? If you check to the Bible, most of the wild information, they come from God himself. Either in manifestation of Jesus, it's your Jesus who revealed who Satan is, and it's God who revealed that there are kings in hell that are ruling. It's beautiful, and I love it. All the kingdoms mentioned in Daniel, though outwardly ruled by human kings, were spiritually ruled by these Nephilim entities from the underworld. So the prophets of the Bible, they knew, like Jeremiah, he declared that Baal of Babylon shall be put to shame. And he also named Medoc and other gods, Jeremiah 50 verse 2. So we see these were the same kings described in Isaiah, and the human rulers of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, Merodach, and others. They were only physical vessels. The throne belongs to the owners in hell. Whoever sits on the throne are those appointed or chosen to rule. That is why even in modern tradition, wherever on earth, you must be the chosen one to rule. If you are not the one to rule, if you sit on the throne, they'll be killed by those Shadim. They kill them. People who are not called to rule, they end up ruling, they bring a lot of trouble on them. But if you are called to rule, once you sit on the throne takes over. Every seat of government, every traditional kingdom, their thrones, their seat are ruled by these entities from hell. Because as it mentioned, these are the kings of the nations, and they are still ruling. So behind them, Nephilim spirits directed their kingdoms from Sheol. They take commands and authority. How do they take commands? Sometimes they communicate with them directly. They'll tell them, oh, these are the ancient kings that rule. They call them ancestral kings, and they have to consult with them. No, they are not. These are the Shadim, the Gibborims, the Rephaims, the Shadims in hell. And from hell, they control, they influence everything. So the pattern emerges. The Shadim ruled the nations of men from the shadows of the underworld. Satan is the ruler of these kings, hence making him the ruler over all the Shadim. In my next study, I'll be doing a research on decoding the book of Revelation. So we're going to explore deep into these things. The book of Revelation will become meaningful to you. It won't be something scary. There are people who don't read it because they don't understand it. Something is just a picture. We're going to decipher it. We're going to see what is happening. People call it apocalyptic. It's like God is destroying things on earth. Who is behind it? Is it God who is it God who chose to do it, or something else? We're gonna find out. We're going to decode now. At least now we know who the dragon is, and then we have an idea about the beast and the false prophet, and we're gonna explore all the different symbolism and the literalism that are captured there. Thank you very much for joining me. God bless you so much and give you enlightenment. May God open the eyes of your understanding so that you can fully behold and understand fully what His word has to offer. May God enrich you with His word and heal your body, strengthen your spirit, and give you strong mind. And whatever you do, may God cause it to be blessed. In Jesus' name, I pray. God bless you. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and to watch and recommend it to people. This is a learning session. It is there to help us to understand and to spread the truth of the word. God bless you.